Okay, good morning. This is day 29 of videos of the day or thoughts in the life of me as a schizophrenic human or a human with schizophrenia. And I make these videos to practice being on camera as a life skill, as well as to reveal some of my experience with what's termed a cognitive war by NATO and the way it tries to affect groups of people or individuals like myself. And schizophrenia is uh, something that can be chalked up to experience with like a underworld or a classified or some sort of covert operation surrounding the centralized target, which is the schizophrenic in the middle. And I a lot of people go around calling it the targeted individual program, but I like to focus on schizophrenia because I believe we should examine what schizophrenia was ever, now that there's all these technologies and behaviors explaining it. Okay, so I was going to talk a little bit today about the fact that a month ago, last month, the assistant mayor of Los Angeles was fired, as I understand it was last month, for calling in a bomb threat to City Hall. And this is the deputy mayor of Los Angeles, and he was appointed by Karen Bass into that position. And so it makes you wonder if this is somebody that's appointed into a position by the mayor of Los Angeles herself. It makes you wonder what else is going on. Like, the idea of like supposedly there's nothing else to this or whatever. It's just some lone wolf deputy mayor that decided to call in a bomb threat to City Hall. And this guy was overseeing the LA Fire Department. And so you know, uh, it really makes you wonder what else could be going on, and there's been all kinds of things over the years within the government. If you go back to 9/11 and all this, and it's like uh, that's kind of indicative of occult behavior where you have people within the government calling in bomb threats to the government itself, and then going around being like, "Oh my God, we just got threatened. You got to protect us and everything." And it's like, uh, I don't, it, I called it Culterica, actually, America, because it's like, you know, they like to do these big things, and like it's these big mesmerizing things, and it like gets everybody all mesmerized and everything, and they don't. Uh, Everyone says, "Oh, it's so big, we got to go for it. It's this gigantic thing or whatever," and so. Uh, Anyways, yeah, I don't know exactly what's going on, but like I say, I don't really trust that six separate fires were started by six random accidents without human hands. And the human hands could be EMT. They're saying that Edison started the Eaton fire, but somebody could mess around with the wires, like through EMP attack or laser attack or something, and they could, or even the wind itself could be manipulated. Uh, there's so many possibilities on that front just for that particular type of fire. But anyways, uh, we we need to have more of a examination about how fires start. That's my personal opinion on it. Okay, so the other day I watched the UCI UCSD basketball game, and both teams were doing very well uh, this year. I think UCI was 4-0 and UCSD was 4-0 in the Big Sky or Big West or whatever it's called that they play in, and it's turned into like a little, I guess, a rivalry. I don't know. They're kind of close together. I think their campuses are like something like 60 miles apart or something, or I think it's like that. And so UCSD lost to UCI, and UCI has this little point guard named Che, who looks pretty good. He looks like a pretty good player. They also got some other good players on their team, and yeah. So all right. So I was reading in my Clanlands book, and in the book Clanlands, it discusses that there was a ship that came over. It was I think it was the first or the second ship that came over to Dunedin in New Zealand when they were going to create that town or create the settlement and colonize New Zealand. And one of the ships that came over was called the Philip Laing. And so we have Langs in our family, and now we have some of the people on that ship. And they said that the Philip Laing was named after a family from Scotland, and this happened in the Hungry 40s when there was a famine going on in Scotland, and there people were looking for a place to go and escape or whatever. And uh, in addition to that, people families on that ship. One of the families that were on that ship were the Macleans and the Wallaces, and we actually have Macleans and Wallace in our family. So we have Langs, Macleans, and Wallace in our family tree now, and so it's kind of interesting, and I thought that was kind of cool. So I learned about that, the the settlement of New Zealand, I think the first or second ship that came over. All right, so in my UFO book, it discusses an incident called the Exeter incident, and in this incident there was two eyewitnesses that were citizens, in addition to two eyewitnesses who were police officers, and they all saw a big UFO in the sky, and no one knew what was going on, and they were curious, and they reported it, and the government came back with their explanation, and the government had two different explanations, and none of the explanations matched what the eyewitnesses said that were not uh, high up in the government. So um, I think one of the government explanations was that there was bombers doing mid-air uh, refueling, and it didn't square up with what the eyewitnesses said they saw and the maneuvering of the aircraft and stuff and what they were witnessing. And so this is actually a common thing with the UFO incidents. There'll be eyewitness accounts that saying this is what happened, this is what I saw, and then the government will come back with like kind of random weird explanations that just don't match up to what people are saying their eyewitness explanations or whatever. So yeah, that's one thing I can say as I'm reading these UFO books. That's one thing I'm learning is like the government has like kind of bogus explanations for what caused these UFO sightings, and it's kind of, if you witness the thing, you're like, this is a bogus explanation, and so it's almost like an intimidation thing that the government does, where like they come up with like this bogus explanation, and it's like supposedly to intimidate you, like, we're going to come up with something so bogus that it's futile to resist our bogus explanation. And that's like something that I'm kind of seeing with like fires and terrorist attacks or whatever. Like, you know that the government can read people's minds. You know that the government can manipulate the weather, or like they've been talking about manipulating the weather since 1960s. You know this technology probably proliferated in the world to different groups of people around the world, and now they're saying like they're just saying like, yeah, this crazy thing just happened, and we don't need to investigate it because or they're going to investigate, but it's probably going to be a minimal investigation. So we'll see, I guess. But uh, Jose Delgado in 1969. In 1969, Jose Delgado came up with like a machine to manipulate a bull. I think everyone's seen this. Not everyone, but maybe not everyone has seen this. But there's a psychological or psychiatrist apparatus he attached to a bull, and he remote controlled the bull, and the bull would charge, and he would stop the bull just by pressing a certain pleasure center of the brain and stimulate the brain of the bull. And he could basically get a stop button on the bull, and if the bull was eating, he could tell the bull to stop eating. If the bull was charging and angry, he could get the bull to stop being charging and angry. And uh so this Jose Delgado actually spent time in a concentration camp, so he was a little bit tweaked in what he saw was necessary for humanity, and he thought that the idea of know thyself, which is goes all the way back to Shakespeare and to thy own self be true, or know thyself, that motto was to be replaced with construct thyself. And that he wrote a book in 1969, I think, called Towards a Psychocivilzed Society, and he wanted to control people's brains to make society more civilized. And it was like a very kind of outright control idea that he had as a former concentration camp member. And you know, I think that we're there already. I can tell you that I have experienced people controlling thoughts in my brains. They put thoughts in my head that are like sound like my thoughts, but they're actually implanted, and they can make it so seamless that it makes you think like you're thinking what you're thinking, but it's actually like an AI thinking for you. And they can also do it in other voices, so that that's when they let me know. Like in the morning, they've done these things, like kind of experiments, I think, where they give me thoughts in my brain, and it's like, oh, that was artificially placed there, and I can tell. But they've done it some other seamless ways where like I would almost not be able to tell the way they put it in my brain, because I just like I can decipher like a little like it came out of nowhere kind of thing. Like that thought came out of nowhere, but it was so felt so natural, but like because it came out of nowhere like that, and I was like, okay, that was a little suspicious. If you have thoughts that come out of nowhere, into your brain, it's probably it could be a little suspicious. But then they're also controlling the environment, so like your whole environment is being controlled. Like it's like I talked already about the mock government. We have like a mock society right now, and everything is like it's like a control thing. And I'm not saying I'm for this control, but like when you have this control, uh certain things that happen don't need to be a secret, you know. So, uh, anyways, that's what I can talk about. Jose Delgado wanted to create a psychocivilized society and control everyone's brains and construct thyself instead of know thyself. So everything's about constructing people. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to stop here because it's been about 15 minutes. All right. Thanks for listening.